When you're analyzing data in Excel, it's always wise to deploy techniques that improve the overall efficiency of an analysis. Shortcuts are one great way to do that, and another is naming cells and/or ranges. This simple technique can save a few keystrokes, as well as help add context to any analysis. So in this lesson, let's learn how to name cells as well as ranges. Alright, so what we have here is just a simple data set. We have employee name, department, title, and their salary. So basically just any employee list with a few other items added. Okay, so this is all well and good, but I want to add a little bit of context to this and help make our analysis a little bit more efficient. So let's say you're the CEO of this company, and you want to know the total salaries that you pay out each year, as well as the average salary. So there's two ways we could do that. We could just come over to column E here and go through E9, and we can come to the bottom here and we can see that the average is 134,659. There's 10 employees, and the sum of that is 1,346,591. Okay, great. That makes sense. But let's do this a little bit more efficiently and also in a way that we can use this data again if we have to recall it in this workbook. So I'm going to create two metrics here. Remember, we're trying to find out two things. We're trying to find out total salaries, and then we're trying to find out average salary. Okay, let me bold that here. So these are our two metrics. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to find out what the total salaries are. Okay, the way to do that is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do a sum function, and I'm going to take this sum and go over to column E, and using my shift control down arrow key, select that range and then hit enter, and there we go, 1,346,591. Okay, great. We know that to be the case. We've checked that using this selected range, and we can come down here to the bottom and we can see 1,346,591. Okay, great. But how can we make this a little bit more efficient next time so we don't have to keep adding it up? Well, we can name that cell H9 here, so the cell reference of H9 with a specific name. So what I'm going to do is come up here to the cell reference and the name box, and I'm going to change this to total underscore salaries. Okay, if I move away from that cell, I get H8. Okay, if I move to that cell, now I have the name here. I'm going to make that a little bit wider so you can see it, total salaries. This is now a named cell. Simple, but useful. So how can we use this? Well, one of our tasks was to figure out what the average salary is. So what I can do is I can take that total salaries named cell and divide it by the number of employees, which we know is 10, in order to get the average salary. So there's two ways I can do this. I can come over here and I can do that same sum again, right? And I can divide it by 10. Okay? $134,659.10. All right, we know that that's the case as far as our average is concerned because it's what we got before. Okay? That's one way to do it. Another way is we can reference that named cell. So we know that that named cell before was called total salaries. You see that? This little tag here is referencing that named cell of H9, and it allows us to bring in that named cell. Okay, great. So what I can do then is I can take that total salaries, and by hitting tab it's going to bring in that information, and I can hit enter, and there's my total salaries. Okay, but remember, we have to do the average salary, and we know that there are 10 people. So I'm going to hit F2. F2 allows us to get inside of that cell and make any changes we deem necessary. So by hitting F2, think of it as a way to get inside the cell to make changes. So what I'm going to do is hit division here, hit the division sign, and divide by 10 because we know that that's the number of employees. There you go. So what we did is we basically took that cell reference and made it useful through a named set of items. Excel also gives you the option to name a range. So let's do the same average salary calculation, but this time we're just going to use a named range. So the first thing I'm going to do is to create a metric called number of employees. Okay, and the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to go to cell B9 and select down using my Control-Shift down arrow key, and I'm going to come up to the name box and I'm going to name this employees. So now this range from B9 through B18 is named as employees, so it is now a named range. You can tell that it's a named range because if I just go like this and select a few values here, it doesn't pop up until the last cell, and this whole highlighted section here is the named range. Okay, great, but what can I do with this? Well, let's try to figure out what the number of employees are using that named range. So what I can do is equal, and Excel has a functionality called count, and specifically in this case I want to use count A because I want to count the number of cells in a range that are not empty. So I want to count the cells from B9 through B18 that are not empty. And in this case, that would be the employee names, which would in turn give us the count. So I'm going to hit Tab to get count A, and I'm going to type in employees. And once I hit Enter, you'll see that that should come up as 10. And it does. Okay, great. So why don't we do this? Why don't we name this cell as number of employees? So I come back up here to my name box, and I'm going to type in number of employees. Okay, perfect. Now that is a named cell. So let's create a new average salary metric. And what we can do is actually use our total salaries named cell and divide that by our new number of employees named range, and that should give us the same average salary. And it does. So what we've done here is we've used both a named cell and a named range to calculate this information. Okay, great. But what is this good for? Well, if you were doing an analysis, right, and you needed to use that average salary number over and over and over again in a formula, you could use the named range. Just for example, if I came here and I said, okay, the boss says he wants to hire 20 more employees at that average salary. What I can do is I could just name this range of average salary. I can come up top here and I can name this as average salary, and then I can use that times those 20 employees to get what that would cost us. So I could use that over and over and over again without having to go ahead and do the math. So it basically is a shortcut on the math. So how do I know which cells I've actually named? Well, if I come up to formulas and I click on Name Manager, this is where everything exists. So you can see that I've got average salary, I've got employees, I've got number of employees, and you can see the value associated with it. We've got our print area and print titles here because that's what we did earlier in our freeze panes lesson. We learned how to set the print area, and then we've got our total salaries named cell here as well. So this is a way to quickly see which of your named cells and ranges are actually in this workbook. You can also delete and edit them here as well. So think of naming cells and ranges as a shortcut for the mathematics within Excel or formulas. You can do several different things and name a specific cell that has a formula in it and then go and replicate that in an analysis. So that is a quick and easy way to use Excel to continue to provide efficiency to your analyses. Another way to gain efficiency in your analyses in Excel is to use a table. And typically what you'll do is you'll turn a data set that you have into a table. And I'll show you how that improves efficiency here. So in my data table here, I'm going to select the entire data set. And I'm going to turn this into a data table. I'm going to come up to Insert, and I'm going to click on the Table button here. So what has popped up here is that Excel is asking me where is my data. So I've told it that the highlighted section here is where my data is from B8 all the way through E18. I have headers, so I've checked that checkbox here. So my table has headers. I'm going to click OK. So you'll see here what this has done is a couple things. One, it's added this nice formatting here so I can easily read this, but it's also added these filters here, or drop downs that I can use as filters. So what does this do for me? Well, a couple things. One is that this data table is a data table itself. So it's formatted as a data table now and not just a data set. So I can come up here in Department and select, so say I want to know the average salary for business development. I can click business development, and then here I have my average salary for the two individuals that are there, and I can see that $94,934 is my average salary for these two individuals. So it's just a quick and easy way to create a on-the-fly data set that can be analyzed pretty quickly using the filters that are given in a data table. We will cover data tables more in the future, but I just wanted to give you a quick introduction. So those are a couple ways to speed up your analyses in Excel.